Embarcadero Delphi is an integrated development environment for console, desktop graphical, web, and mobile applications. Delphi's compilers use their own Object Pascal dialect of Pascal and generate native code for 32 and 64-bit Windows operating systems, as well as 32-bit Mac OS X, iOS and Android. As of late 2011, support for the Linux operating system was planned by Embarcadero. Delphi was originally developed by Borland as a rapid application development tool for Windows, and as the successor of Borland Pascal. Delphi and its C++ counterpart, C++ Builder, shared many core components, notably the IDE and VCL, but remained separate until the release of Rada Studio 2007. Rada Studio is a shared host for Delphi, C++ Builder, and others. In 2006, Borland Euro unregistered trademark S developer tools section were transferred to a wholly owned subsidiary known as CodeGear, which was sold to Embarcadero Technologies in 2008. History: Delphi was originally one of many codenames of a pre-release development tool project at Borland. Borland developer Danny Thorpe suggested the Delphi codename in reference to the Oracle at Delphi. One of the design goals of the product was to provide database connectivity to programmers as a key feature, and a popular database package at the time was Oracle Database. Hence, if you want to talk to the Oracle, go to Delphi. As development continued towards the first release, the Delphi codename gained popularity among the development team and beta testing group. However, the Borland marketing leadership preferred a functional product name over an iconic name and made preparations to release the product under the name Borland App Builder. Shortly before the release of the Borland product, Novell App Builder was released, leaving Borland in need of a new product name. After much debate and many market research surveys, the Delphi codename became the Delphi product name. The chief architect behind Delphi was Anders Hejlsberg, who had developed Turbo Pascal. He was persuaded to move to Microsoft in 1996. On February 8, 2006, Borland announced that it was looking for a buyer for its IDE and database line of products, including Delphi, to concentrate on its ALM line. On November 14, 2006, Borland transferred the development tools group to an independent subsidiary company named CodeGear, instead of selling it. Borland sold CodeGear to Embarcadero Technologies in 2008. Embarcadero retained the CodeGear division created by Borland to identify its tool and database offerings, but identified its own database tools under the Database Gear name. Versions: Early Borland years. Borland Delphi. Delphi was released in 1995 for the 16-bit Windows 3.1, and was an early example of what came to be known as rapid application development tools. Delphi evolved from Borland's Turbo Pascal for Windows, itself an evolution with Windows support from Borland's Turbo Pascal and Borland Pascal, very fast 16-bit native code MS-DOS compilers with their own sophisticated integrated development environment and textual user interface toolkit for DOS. Early Turbo Pascal was written in a dialect of the Pascal programming language. In later versions, support for objects was added, and it was named Object Pascal. Delphi has always used Object Pascal, which continued to be developed, as its underlying procedural language. Borland Delphi 2, released in 1996, supported 32-bit Windows environments. Delphi 1 was bundled with it for creation of 16-bit Windows 3.1 applications. New Quick Report components replacing Borland Report Smith. It was then later turned into Java. Borland Delphi 3, released in 1997, added new VCL components encapsulating the 4.71 version of Windows Common Controls, dataset architecture separated from BDE, DLL debugging, the code insight technology, component packages, component templates, Decision Cube and TF-chart components for statistical graphing, web broker, active forms, Midas 3-tier architecture, component packages and integration with COM through interfaces. Enterprise Delphi 4 was released in 1998. IDE came with a completely overhauled editor and became dockable. VCL added support for action lists, anchors and constraints. Additional improvements were method overloading, dynamic arrays, Windows 98 support, Java interoperability, high-performance database drivers, CORBA development, and Microsoft back-office support. It was the last version shipped with Delphi 1 for 16-bit programming. Borland Delphi 5. Borland Delphi 5 was released in 1999. Added concept of frames, parallel development, translation capabilities, enhanced integrated debugger, XML support, ADO database support and reference counting interfaces, Killix. In 2001 Borland released a Linux version of Delphi, named Killix. The IDE was dependent on the Wine libraries rather than Linux's native system libraries in order to get a product out quickly and relatively cheaply. The expense of developing a native glibc version of Killix, combined with the lack of Linux adoption among programmers at the time, caused sales to go soft, and Killix was abandoned after version 3. This was the first attempt to add Linux support in the Delphi product family. Killix used the new CLX cross-platform framework, instead of Delphi's VCL. Borland Delphi 6, attempts to support both Linux and Windows for cross-platform development were made, and a cross-platform alternative to the VCL known as CLX shipped in 2001 with the release of Delphi 6. This was the second attempt to add Linux support to the Delphi product family. Delphi 6 included the same CLX version as the first version of Killix. CLX 1 had been created before Delphi 6. Its feature set was based on VCL 5 and lacked some features added to the VCL 6 shipped with Delphi 6. Borland Delphi 7, Delphi 7, released in August 2002, became the standard version used by more Delphi developers than any other single version. It is one of the most successful IDEs created by Borland because of his stability, speed and low hardware requirements, and remained in active use as of 2011. Delphi 7 added support for Windows XP themes, and added more support for building web applications. It was the last version of Delphi which could be used without mandatory software activation. Borland Delphi 8, Delphi 8, released December 2003, was a .NET-only release that compiled Delphi Object Pascal code into .NET CIL. The IDE was rewritten for this purpose. The IDE changed to a docked interface similar to Microsoft's Visual Studio .NET. Delphi 8 was highly criticized for its low quality and its inability to create native applications. The inability to generate native applications is only applicable to this release. The capability was restored in the next release. Later Borland years, Borland Delphi 2005, the next version, Delphi 2005, included the Win32 and .NET development in a single IDE, reiterating Borland's commitment to Win32 developers. Delphi 2005 includes design time manipulation of live data from a database. It also includes an improved IDE and added a full instatement of the language. However, it was widely criticized for its bugs. Both Delphi 8 and Delphi 2005 had stability problems when shipped, which were only partially resolved in service packs. The ability to compile native Windows applications was added back into Delphi 2005 after being removed in Delphi 8. CLX support was dropped for new applications from this release onwards. Borland Delphi 2006, in late 2005 Delphi 2006 was released and combined development of C and Delphi.NET, Delphi Win32 and C++ into a single IDE. It was much more stable than Delphi 8 or Delphi 2005 when shipped, and improved even more with the release of service packs and several hotfixes. Turbo Delphi and C++. On September 6, 2006 the Developer Tools Group of Borland Software Corporation released single-language versions of Borland Developer Studio components, bringing back the Turbo name. The Turbo product set included Turbo Delphi for Win32, Turbo Delphi for .NET, Turbo C++, and Turbo C. There were two variants of each edition, Explorer, a free downloadable version, and the professional version, priced at $899 for new users and $399 for updates, less than the full Borland Delphi, which opened access to thousands of third-party components. Unlike earlier personal editions of Delphi, Explorer editions could be used for commercial development. CodeGear Delphi 2007. Delphi 2007, the first version by CodeGear, was released on March 16, 2007. The Win32 personality was released first, before the .NET personality of Delphi 2007, which is based on .NET Framework 2.0, was released as part of the CodeGear Radial Studio 2007 product. New features included support for misbuild and enhancements to the Visual Component Library for Windows Vista, but the C Builder feature was dropped in this release as sales were not as high as expected due to Visual Studio also offering C. The Windows Form Designer for Delphi.NET was also dropped in D 2007 because it is based upon part of the .NET Framework API, which had been changed so drastically by Microsoft in .NET 2.0 that updating the IDE would have been a major undertaking. Delphi 2007 also introduced DBX4 as the next version of DB Express. For the first time, Delphi could be downloaded from the Internet and activated with a license key, a capability powered by the new installer-aware installation technology. Internationalized versions of Delphi 2007 shipped simultaneously in English, French, German and Japanese. RAD Studio 2007, which includes .NET and C++ Builder development, was released on September 5, 2007. Delphi Prism was developed by REM Object Software and distributed by Embarcadero from 2008 to replace Delphi.NET. It is a combination of REM Objects' mostly Delphi-compatible .NET compiler, a version of the Microsoft Visual Studio shell without C or VB support, and some Embarcadero technology such as DB Express. Prism is cross-platform capable insofar as it supports the Mono.NET libraries. Prism is a separate product line with new releases. Embarcadero Delphi Prism XE2 was released at about the same time as Delphi XE2. Embarcadero years, Embarcadero Delphi 2009, Delphi 2009, added many new features such as completely reworking the VCL and RTL for full Unicode support, and added generics and anonymous methods for Win32 native development. Support for .NET development was dropped from the mainstream Delphi IDE starting with this version, and was catered for by the new Delphi Prism. Embarcadero Delphi 2010, Delphi 2010, was released on August 25, 2009 and is the second Unicode release of Delphi. It includes a new compiler runtime type information system, support for Windows 7 Direct 2D, touchscreen and gestures, a source code formatter, debugger visualizers and the option to also have the old-style component palette in the IDE. The new RTTI system makes larger executables than previous versions. Embarcadero Delphi XE, was released on August 30, 2010 with Delphi support for Amazon EC2, Microsoft Azure were bundled. Delphi Starter Edition. On January 27, 2011, Embarcadero announced the availability of a new Starter Edition which gives independent developers, students and micro-businesses a slightly reduced feature set for a price less than a quarter of that of the next cheapest version. Embarcadero Delphi XE2. On September 1, 2011, Embarcadero released RAD Studio XE2 which included Delphi XE2, C++ Builder, Prism XE2 and RAD PHP XE2. Delphi XE2 natively supports 64-bit Windows, in addition to the long-supported 32-bit versions, with some backwards compatibility. Applications for 64-bit platforms can be compiled, but not tested or run, on the 32-bit platform. The XE2 IDE cannot debug 64-bit programs on Windows 8 and above. Delphi XE2 is supplied with both the VCL, and an alternative library called FireMonkey that supports Windows, Mac OS X and the Apple iPhone, iPod Touch and iPad portable devices. FireMonkey and VCL are not compatible. One or the other must be used, and older VCL applications cannot use FireMonkey unless user interfaces are recreated with FireMonkey forms and controls. Third parties have published information on how to use FireMonkey forms in VCL software to facilitate gradual migration, but even then VCL and FireMonkey controls cannot be used on the same form. Embarcadero says that Linux operating system support is being considered for the roadmap, as is Android, and that they are committed to FireMonkey. Expect regular and frequent updates to FireMonkey. Unfortunately, iOS platform's development works only with Xcode 4.2.1 and lower, OS X version 10.7 and lower, and iOS SDK 4.3 and earlier. This limitation will be removed in 2013 release of Delphi, which will support iOS development natively. Embarcadero Delphi XE3. On September 4, 2012, Embarcadero released RAD Studio XE3, which included Delphi XE3 and C++ Builder. Delphi XE3 natively supports both 32-bit and 64-bit editions of Windows, and provides support for Mac OS X with the FireMonkey 2/FMA² framework. iOS support was dropped with XE3 release initially, but applications can continue to be targeted to that platform by developing with Delphi XE2. Embarcadero Delphi XE4. On April 22, 2013, Embarcadero released RAD Studio XE4, which included Delphi XE4 and C++ Builder. Delphi XE4 is the first release of the FireMonkey mobile platform, featuring cross-platform mobile application development for the iOS simulator and iOS devices. In this version, Embarcadero introduces two new compilers for Delphi mobile applications. These compilers significantly differ from the Win64 desktop compiler, as they do not support COM, inline assembly of CPU instructions, and 6 older string types such as PCHAR. The new mobile compilers advance the notion of eliminating pointers. The new compilers require an explicit style of marshalling data from external APIs and libraries. Delphi XE4 runtime library is optimized for zero-based, read-only Unicode strings that cannot be indexed for the purpose of changing their individual characters. The RTL also adds status bit-based exception routines for ARM CPUs that do not generate exception interrupts. Embarcadero Delphi XE5. On September 12, 2013, Embarcadero released RAD Studio XE5, which includes Delphi XE5 and C++ Builder. It adds support for Android, Ice Cream Sandwich and Jelly Bean, and iOS 7. Embarcadero Delphi XE6. On April 15, 2014, Embarcadero released RAD Studio XE6, which included Delphi XE6 and C++ Builder. It allows to create natively compiled apps for all platforms for both desktop and mobile, and even wearable devices like Google Glass, with a single C++ or Object Pascal codebase. RAD Studio XE6 adds support for Android 4.4 KitKat. It also became possible to create FireMonkey mobile apps for Android. Embarcadero Delphi XE7. On September 2, 2014, Embarcadero released RAD Studio XE7, which included Delphi XE7 and C++ Builder. It enables Delphi Object Pascal and C++ developers to extend existing Windows applications and build new, modern apps that connect desktop and mobile devices with gadgets, cloud services, and enterprise data and APIs. Also, it enables developers to extend Windows applications using Wi-Fi and Bluetooth app tethering, and create shared user interface code across multiple device form factors, etc. Plans. Embarcadero plans for development of Windows Phone mobile application and Linux servers on or before March 2015. Editions and prices. Each version has been released in different editions which add functionality and price to the most basic one. As an indication of editions and prices, Delphi XE2 was sold directly by Embarcadero in 2011 in editions called Starter, Professional, Enterprise, Ultimate, and Architect. Prices vary from different suppliers, with different incentives, and in different regions, and Delphi is also included in the RAD Studio bundles. Embarcadero publishes feature matrices summarizing the differences in functionality. Distinguishing features, Delphi supports rapid application development by introducing features such as Application Framework and Visual Window Layout Designer that reduced application prototyping times. Delphi supports rapid native cross-compilation. Delphi uses the Pascal-based programming language called Object Pascal, and compiles Delphi source code into native x86 code. They include the VCL, support for COM-independent interfaces with reference-counted class implementations, and support for a large number of third-party components. Interface implementations can be delegated to fields or properties of classes. Message handlers are implemented by tagging a method of a class with the integer constant of the message to handle. Database connectivity is supported, and Delphi supplies several database components. The visual component library includes many database-aware and database access components. Later versions have included upgraded and enhanced runtime library routines provided by the community group Fast Code, established in 2003. Advantages: Delphi is a strongly typed high-level programming language, intended to be easy to use and originally based on the earlier Object Pascal language. Pascal was originally developed as a teaching language, without low-level programming facilities or access to hardware and with no emphasis on efficiency. Turbo Pascal and its descendants, including Delphi, are designed for efficiency and support access to hardware and low-level programming, with the facility to incorporate code written in assembly language and other languages. Delphi's object orientation features only class and interface-based polymorphism. Meta-classes are first-class objects. Objects are actually references to the objects which Delphi implicitly dereferences, so there is usually no need to manually allocate memory for pointers to objects or use similar techniques needed in some other languages. There are dedicated reference-counted string types and also null-terminated strings. Strings can be concatenated by using the plus operator, rather than using functions. For dedicated string types, the programmer does not have to handle memory management as Delphi's Memory Manager handles this. The improved Memory Manager introduced with Borland Developer Studio 2006 provides functions to locate memory leaks. The language is suitable for rapid application development and Delphi includes an integrated IDE. The Delphi products all ship with a large framework called the Visual Component Library, usually referred to by its initials VCL, including most of his source code. Third-party components and tools to enhance the IDE or for other Delphi-related development tasks are available free of charge or for purchase. The IDE includes a GUI for localization and translation of created programs which may be deployed to a translator at no additional cost. Some developers prefer to use third-party products with more functionality for this purpose. The VCL framework maintains a high level of source compatibility between versions which simplifies adapting existing source code to a newer Delphi version. Third-party libraries may need updates from the vendor but, if source code is supplied, recompilation with a newer version may be sufficient. The VCL was an early adopter of dependency injection or inversion of control. It uses a sophisticated reusable component model, extensible by the developer. With class helpers, new functionality can be introduced to core RTL and VCL classes without changing the original source code of the RTL or VCL. The quick optimizing single-pass compiler can compile to a single executable, simplifying distribution and eliminating DLL version issues. Delphi can also generate standard DLLs, ActiveX DLLs, COM automation servers and Windows services. The Delphi IDEs since Delphi 2005 increasingly support refactoring features such as method extraction and the possibility to create UML models from the source code or to modify the source through changes made in the model. Delphi has large communities on Usenet and the web. Many CodeGear employees actively participate. Backward compatibility: each new release of Delphi attempts to be as compatible as possible with earlier versions, so that already developed software and libraries can be retained. Incompatibility necessarily arises as new functionality is added, for example, with support by FireMonkey of other platforms than Windows. Limitations: backward compatibility. Each new release of Delphi attempts to keep as much backwards compatibility as possible to allow developers to continue to use existing code without incompatibility of interfaces or functionality. The design of the standard class libraries had become somewhat dated and restrictive. Embarcadero released in 2011 as part of Delphi XE2 a new compiler and cross-platform VCL replacement called FireMonkey, based on Direct3D and OpenGL, which runs on other platforms in addition to Windows, supporting their features, but is not fully backwards compatible with VCL applications. FireMonkey applications do however allow easy sharing of non-visual code units with VCL applications, enabling a lot of code to be ported easily between the platforms. Related software: RAD Studio. Embarcadero sells RAD Studio, a suite of development tools which consists of Delphi, C++ Builder, Embarcadero Prism and HTML5 Builder. Like Delphi, there are different editions of RAD Studio: Professional Edition, Enterprise Edition, Ultimate Edition and Architect Edition. Interface: Interface integrates natively to Delphi and C++ Builder for client-server or embedded development and can be accessed by all major languages and platforms in the market with database connection protocols like ODBC, ADO, ADO.NET and even with Java by JDBC, ODBC Bridge or Java Type 4 connectors. Builder: tool for Java development based on Eclipse since version Builder 2007. RAD-PHP. RAD-PHP was an IDE for PHP that provides true RAD functionality. It has a form designer similar to that of Delphi or Visual Basic, and an integrated debugger based on the Apache web server. It also includes a VCL library ported to PHP. Unlike other IDEs, it supports Web 2.0 features such as Ajax. Delphi for PHP was announced on March 20, 2007, renamed on October 2010 to RAD-PHP, and is based on CodeGear QStudio. Embarcadero acquired CodeGear in January 2011. Delphi Prism. Delphi Prism was a derivative of the Oxygen programming language product from REM objects which ran in the Microsoft Visual Studio IDE rather than RAD Studio. It was licensed and rebranded by Embarcadero to replace Delphi.NET when that product was discontinued. Although REM Objects Oxygen was further developed and incorporated support for native Java, Android, iOS and OS X development, the version licensed by Embarcadero was limited to only supporting .NET. It was eventually itself discontinued by Embarcadero with the release of Delphi XE4, leaving the Delphi product line with no support for .NET development. The Oxygen product on which it was based continues to be developed by REM Objects as part of their Elements product line. Third-party software: Free Pascal, an open-source Pascal compiler which partially supports Delphi code and works on many operating systems. Lazarus, a Radeon IDE developed for and supported by the Free Pascal compiler that runs on Windows, Linux and Mac OS X, a free alternative which works very much like Delphi, and is cross-platform. Project Jedi, a collaborative open-source effort by Delphi developer community to provide translations of Windows API interfaces, additional components and controls, and algorithms and data structures. Fast Code, enhanced runtime libraries and memory manager. TIA-Chart, charting library. OpenWire, data flow, events, and state synchronization component library. Quadruple D, a DirectX library for Delphi. Code examples: Hello World. Procedure TFORM1 show something on create. Begin, show message, Hello World. End. Hello World. Procedure TFORM1 show something on create. Begin, label 1 caption, equals Hello World. End. See also, Add-in Express, Turbo Delphi, Turbo Pascal, Visual Component Library, References. Further reading. External links, official website, Delphi Basics Help and Reference for the Fundamentals of the Delphi, Useful Sites, Delphi Programming.